Welcome back, everyone, to Red Spotlight Entertainment. I'm Alexis, and I'm joined by David, and this is the second installment of hopefully at least 136 installments. That's how many episodes this show has. Perhaps there will be more of this reaction slash audio commentary series that we just started randomly the other week. So, for those who are not aware, here on Red Spotlight, we cover basically most of the things that are interesting to us revolving the world of movies. On Red Spotlight, we discuss, brand new movies, movie reviews. And then we also have other, podcasts on the network like Turn to Page, Quest Center, right?
Yes.
Both of which are hosted by David here. And we also have done some reactions on this channel to Ahsoka and to Doctor Who. And then I believe this is on video anyway, the third official one. But David and I have had a pretty storied history with this show. We've been watching basically from the very beginning. It's now the beginning of it anyway. The season that we're watching is now 10 years old. So, and as we explained in the previous installment, we just thought, well, you know what? Everyone's kind of jumping on the Shield bandwagon. It's like, hey, can we join in on the fun? And what I said last time also is that, as in terms of especially how we're going to be talking about the show, it's I feel catered toward fans of the show, that have been longtime fans, that we have, just to have someone to talk to about the show and not necessarily. I know that right now on YouTube, there are plenty of other channels you can check out to basically relive it all over again. And trust me, I do that. But I also feel there should be, I've always just imagined this as a space to talk about the show with people who are as obsessed with it as you are. And that's what we're going to do. So in our first audio commentary reaction, I thought it was a pretty good discussion. And I hope I wasn't like overbearing, David. It turned out there was quite a bit to say. And I feel like by the time I stopped talking, the episode was like almost over. But I was just like, that whole first, if you haven't seen the first commentary, go back and listen to that. It kind of explains all of this. But it kind of, as far as that commentary, my main point was to really just talk about the strengths of the show and then also the perception of it. I'm really happy that we didn't really address canon, and we probably still aren't unless it ends up becoming relevant in this episode. But I had a lot of fun watching that episode again, and it seemed that you did as well.
Yeah. No, for sure, it was fun going back, and also like you know so much more about this show than I do, so it is always interesting, like learning about some tidbits and everything. But yeah, no, it's always, I think for any show that you really love, it's always fun to go back to the past seasons just to see how everyone has grown, how it first started off, especially like when you do look at it from like, maybe an acting standpoint or cinematography standpoint, because like it is, you don't really remember it as you thought it was, like from an acting standpoint, you really do see like how these actors grew to become their characters, basically. Like you especially notice that in like comedy shows for sure and all that. Where you can just tell like, okay, the deliveries aren't the same as it was in like the final season and everything like that, something like that. So yeah, it's fun.
And it's, for as much as I know of the show, I still, in my most recent rewatch, as a matter of fact, which is ongoing, I'm still finding new things. And whenever I find something that I didn't notice before, I immediately share it with you. And we've already been talking about it, some things that were like, whoa, I didn't see that. I didn't catch this at all. And who even knows if they even had the full picture when that was like referenced, because this was like stuff that came before beforehand. So it even makes it that much more impressive. I guess the consistency to it, especially if it wasn't even like all that well thought out in their minds just yet. It was more maybe a concept than an actual details to it. Like I know the last podcast, or the last commentary, I should say, I did mention that the show in this season overall has way more like, not name drops, but just, it alludes a lot to Bahrain, which is critical for May's character. And May, as a character, doesn't really get a lot to do, especially in the first 10 episodes. I think out of all the main cast here, she's the most kind of in the background, which is interesting because it may also kind of help the overall twist. One of the twists that's exposed later on in the season, that the entire time she also was a bit of a double agent, right? Like she was reporting on all of them behind all their backs, which ended up being a different sense of betrayal than the other more obvious one that was felt through Ward and everything. So, and that should also be a reminder, of course, that there are full spoilers for all 7 seasons and all 136 episodes of this show that may or may not come up, depending on what we see. So, just so we're clear on that. And then also, as far as how things are going to go, how we're going to move forward with this, the optimal way to listen to the conversation is to have your own copy of the show playing at the same time. I understand that audio commentaries, are just that audio, but this is why it's a bit of a hybrid, right? It's a commentary, it's also a reaction, so you get to see our faces, as well as some reactions from these episodes. So there is that as well. So if you have your copy of the episode, have it ready. And I'm going to count down where all of us are going to press play together and start watching this. David, before we even get into this episode, is there an image that sticks out? Like, do you even remember this episode? I know it's only episode 2, but again, it's 2 out of 136 episodes.
There's this one shot I remember, but I'm not sure if it was in this episode specifically. So I'll point it out if it happens. But
okay.
Just because I remember when we rewatched it, I was like, sorry, I was way too far from the mic on that. Just because when I rewatched it before, I just kind of went, oh, okay, you guys are like trying really, really hard to make the action look really cool and everything. It's just, it was a bit too much for me, but it was
sure. So cool. Yeah. No, I there are definitely moments in this first season where things are like, what were you going for here? Mm-hmm. But that was what was going on behind the scenes. No, yeah. So I think looking back on it, and I'm not even saying that you're saying that it was like bad, but it's something that stood out. Mm-hmm. And it's like, if people were wondering, it's like, well, those Rocky Star and they were trying to find themselves. Yeah, they were trying to find themselves in what kind of show they were. They were trying a lot of different things, and some things didn't quite work. Yeah. But what I am saying is, and I guess in my mind, in my heart of hearts, it does excuse some of the stuff that doesn't work as well. It always does in my case because I love the show so much. But I understand why people would have some of those issues. Mm-hmm. I hope I didn't give people the impression that everybody that had like a negative opinion on the show that I was painting with a broad brush. I mean, we called out some things that didn't quite make sense to us, and but I'll say this: what I find really impressive about the first few episodes is how much it gets us to like these characters, but then also how much more it held up in comparison when we connect it to the rest of the show. People just think that this era of the show is rather irrelevant and kind of unnecessary. It's not. Like, it actually kind of plays into what the show would become. At the same time, though, there are a couple of things here that they very much ditched. For one, and again, I'll defend the pacing, even though I understand, of course, that for a lot of people this was not great, of season 1. That was one of the most common complaints. And then when it came to season 2, shit just flies by. Like, the pace, I'm in the middle of my rewatch right now. I'm actually in season 2. I'm on the 5th episode. Flies by, man. Like, things are moving so quickly, but it doesn't feel rushed. And that, I think, is a special touch, especially when we think about the shows that we've been given recently of this variety. So, yeah, just to put that out there. There are, I never wanted to say that there aren't moments of cheese. Yeah, but that's what they were going for, And I feel like in in the, I don't know how long ago it was at this point that we had our discussion on the first episode that we did, but I feel like the more I've watched season 1, the more I've really come to, it's helped me gain some perspective. I feel like it's kind of helped me more than any of the previous times that I've seen the show. This rewatch and then us talking about it has kind of helped me realize more why people couldn't quite connect with it, because I feel very strongly in the fact that this show was it was earnest, it was sincere, it was wearing its heart on its sleeve. Like that first episode, that really, I thought, great speech that and heartfelt speech that Coulson gave to Mike Peterson about, you know, the real deal and everything. And then people just didn't want that. They weren't in the mood for that. Now, yeah, Marvel has a flavor of it, but David, and you correct me if I'm wrong here, but like, it's almost really, and I know that a lot of people are going to like scoff and roll their eyes, but it really is kind of silly to think about, or to compare the quality of storytelling of the MCU universe, the movies particularly, right, and especially the shows, to this one. Especially because the show that we're talking about right now wholly commits to the idea of heart, emotion. For one, there's romance in this show, where there is largely no romance in the movies themselves. But like the best character work in the entire MCU is with these characters, not just because of the time that we spent with them, but every year when they came back, they tried different things that kept it really interesting every single time. And they grew as people. And how much can you really say about most of the characters that Kevin Feige is in charge of in his cinematic universe, you know? But at the same time, because this came out in 2013, you know, we're still in the early days of Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight changing the whole industry. Remember, this was the time when Sony tried The Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield, which was a more like dark and gritty version of Spider-Man, less the Sam Raimi like camp, not really camp, but the Sam Raimi heartness of it that has, for whatever reason, it wasn't like, think about this. There's not that much separation between I guess 2004's Spider-Man 2. Well, I guess there is. Well, I guess actually there was 10 years, right? 9 or 10 years between 2004 and 2013. But in that span of time, tastes change and people wanted a lot more, I guess, seriousness from their stuff. And I just think that people, when they heard about this show, not only were they expecting like big, you know, name Avengers to drop on by, but I also do feel people were thinking that they were going to receive like a really like hardcore, gritty, almost borderline rated R like spy show where there would be like, you know, betrayals left and right, and something more, you know, akin to, well, I mean, they said it themselves, right? We saw that reaction last time when people were like thinking this was gonna be in the same kind of like tone as Game of Thrones or Breaking Bad. And I just don't understand why people ever thought that was in the cards, especially when, of all people, who was in charge of this to you know, get it off the ground? Joss Whedon. Since when was dark and gritty ever in Joss Whedon's repertoire? So it's just like, it's bringing, I think, to light why it kind of was a situation where everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. Except in the fact that the show was actually good. And then it ended up getting better. And it ended up, you know, laughing at everybody's face because, and no one ever thought this, by the way, lasted 7 seasons. Which, hilariously enough, I think, I almost called her Melinda May. That's how I know her so well. Ming-Na Wen, meant to say, said in an interview, I think this was circa season 2, I want to say, maybe 3. But she was the only one to predict that the show would last for 7 seasons. And then it did.
That's cool.
I thought that was pretty cool. So that's enough of a preamble. let's go ahead and get into this episode and see what we remember. I can say this. I feel strongly that looking back on it, if I were the ABC executive, I would have aired this as the premiere as well. I think episode 1 and episode 2 should have been like a 2-hour premiere. Only because, and we're going to talk about this episode, I thought it was really good, and I think actually gets into who the characters are and what the show is going to be, really. The first episode has a mission, and you get introduced, and you get personality, and you get dynamics, but you don't really know them that well at all, you know? Mm-hmm. This is the real first mission of the show. And the overture, especially in these early episodes, there's like a little bit of a twinkling sensation, you know? It's just like a bit of a magical vibe, a magical place, lol. And this is one of in TV, this is what they call a cold open, where you kind of you open with the climax of the episode as a bit of a tease for what's to come. Personally, I've never been a fan of cold opens because I feel like, well, I'm gonna see it anyway. I don't need like a trailer for the episode. So I think this is the only time they ever did a cold open on this show. And you just saw right there Sky take her little hula girl. I don't know how often we see her with it, but you know, obviously, it means a lot to her that she brought it with her from her van. That's her house, actually. I should say her house. And I think you'll see it be displayed in her bunk here on this bus. And then you'll see it at the very end of season 5 when they fly off and leave Coulson on Tahiti. So just things that I remember from seeing that hula girl.
We have 2 kids on this bus who aren't cleared for combat. You're adding a 3rd.
I love that line. I love how they already just we already got 2 kids on this bus. We want to have another one. And, you know, we talked about this last time, David, but I know that one of the early critiques of the show in this era especially was that half of the team was all but useless, quote unquote, in the field. Like they really weren't combat characters. Mm-hmm. And I feel like in some way that played a part in thinking that this wasn't a show for them for some reason. I don't know if that's something you picked up on, but it comes up a lot in these first few episodes, how limited the team can be in combat because half of the team is either away from it because they can't be in the field. I think they said last episode that Fitzsimmons were not cleared for field, which is something that for field duty, which is what Fitz was like, yay, I don't want to be in the field. And then that's what May says to him. If you want to be in the field, Agent Fitz, you have to learn how to get your hands dirty. He will, trust me. I love this right here.
Yeah, Agent Ward told me they sent you to Tahiti.
It's a magical place.
You mentioned that.
But yeah, that's just an early criticism. And then some people were really bothered by the fact, and you know what, this one I can understand. Not that I agree, but people were bothered. Why does S.H.I.E.L.D. label everything they own with a logo on it as if they were a company? The water bottle that she's holding right there has a S.H.I.E.L.D. logo. As if it was sold in a gift shop.
Mm-hmm. I mean, fair criticism for sure. I mean, I don't.
Why does it matter?
Why does it matter? Yeah.
Even the logo's in the back of the plane, which is
I
think that's cool. I like that.
That's fine because they gotta know who it belongs to. I don't know. But I mean, at this point though, too, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s not as secret as people thought they were. Because before it was just you're never gonna know who we are. It's like Sector 7 from the Transformers movie. You know, it's never heard of it, never will. It's just they were like that. But after Avengers, literally the Avengers movie, they were all known. After
they revealed themselves.
There's no point in hiding it.
Yeah,
for sure.
General Talbot actually says in season 2, when they attacked the UN, that S.H.I.E.L.D. first revealed themselves to be known during the Battle of New York. Mm-hmm. which they kind of had to at that point.
Yeah.
You know, you can't really hide an alien invasion, can you? Mm-hmm. Yeah. But you'll see here, very quickly on the dynamics, later on in the episode, Skye is going to basically say it out loud, but she's not told anything about these people because she's just meeting them, really, right? Like, she doesn't know anything about them. Mm-hmm. But it's two-pronged. It's obvious how perceptive she is, but then it's also obvious how inexperienced many of these people are with each other, that she picks up quickly that, is this your first mission together? Which you'll see in a few minutes.
Good morning, Professor. I'm Agent Coulson.
Did you just see Gemma take a selfie with Fitz? Like that. I just realized that for the first time. Oh my goodness. These guys have no idea what they're in for. I love that little touch. Because when do you ever see them take selfies?
Just the ministry.
By the way, that thing that you're seeing on the wall, I have it right behind me. That's the 084. Which we didn't talk about that because we were talking over it. But the first mission being around an 084, which is really interesting, right? Because, what's not interesting was the little, I guess the last one was a hammer. That one was pretty harmless. I know that people were harping on the show for like name dropping Avengers or events in the movies. That never bothered me, but I do get that in this era of the show, they were doing it a lot. Whatever. I think it worked here with the hammer part. But it's so funny to me how the team's first mission was to go find an 084, but unbeknownst to them, they just picked up an 084 last time. Skye's the 084. Mm-hmm. Like, this is one of the first, and I think she's the first ever 084 that was a person. Remember, in season 1, I'm not even sure if they even knew they were doing Inhumans at this point. So I don't know what direction they would have gone elsewhere. By the way, I love how May and Ward right here, they're already well aware of how they're surrounded.
Retirement. It's nice to have a trusted friend who has your back.
I love it. I love it. They were just making small talk here.
That's cool.
Which goes to show you that they're the backbone strength of this team for sure. But yeah, I just thought it was funny how it would be revealed in this season, like in 10 episodes, that Skye would be an 084. And I think what we also missed was the first time one of May's, I guess, not necessarily I guess it is a catchphrase, but it's more of a motto. If I need a gun, I'll take one. That was the first time that it was mentioned right there. When basically Ward was talking to her about, don't you want a gun? It's like, if I need a gun, I'll take one. And she did right now when she was apprehending some of those soldiers.
Estamos aquí por un asunto de la seguridad internacional.
Pretty good Spanish. Honestly. I mean, it's an American accent. Yeah. You can't get over that, you know? It's like, I mean, the same thing, right? If a Mexican was talking in English but with a Mexican accent, right? Like, it is what it is.
We used to work together back in the day. Let the team know everything.
You see that look that May gave Grant? And you know what's also something to bring into context here? Not to take too much away from this moment, I think it's really cool that Coulson had a history with other people. And I love how, this Camilla character just comes back and they're just like smiling at each other. It's funny to me. But, bringing into the context of the show, you really have to wonder at what point May started getting feelings for Phil. Yeah. Because they're best friends, but you do wonder when it happened that it became more than that, And obviously, I don't think it's there at this moment.
No, for sure not.
For sure not here at all. But to be fair, though, the only reason she's even here is because she does love him as a friend. She's here because she wants to make sure that he continues to be alive, that she's aware that whatever they did to Coulson made them go crazy. So as I mentioned last episode, she helped set the parameters to build this team with all the types of agents she would need to put him down if he got out of control, which would happen to John Garrett at the end of this season, remember? But thinking about May and Coulson already have so much history, and we didn't even know it yet when we were watching this episode, right? Like there's before Bahrain, they were going on missions together, like, and I think their very first mission together. I'm sorry, David, you want to say something?
This is the shot I was talking about that I was like, oh, you guys are trying really hard. It hasn't come up yet, actually, but it's in this fight right here. With
Okay, Sean. Let me know when you see it.
For sure. But actually, I did notice another shot.
Go ahead, please.
Trying really hard. It was with when May took down those two guys. There was that wide shot of her just pointing the guns down and everything.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of like, okay, I feel like you're posing, like you're trying really hard to pose all tough and everything.
Right, right. It comes off as goofy.
Comes off a little bit goofy, but again, though, first season doesn't.
Yeah.
They're trying to get used to these characters, and then by the end of it, though, I always remember that pose though of the cavalry, and she's like going like this. That's the most badass you ever looked in the final season.
Right.
So like again, they're developing their characters. They're kind of like. I don't want to say poses and all that, but like, yeah, they're developing their characters, how they want to look. Their look. That's the best way to say it.
Right. No, I get it. And I also get the fact that people would be turned off by
right here.
Something that...
This
See,
right
yes. It's goofy. It's silly. And I think people, again, this only backs up my point. That at this time, people weren't looking for that in a show like this. Mm-hmm. Lucky for me, I was. I dig that kind of shit. I think that's part of the charm, at least for me, of the show, was that it did goofy shit like this. Mm-hmm. Obviously, and you know what? Like, I mentioned that I'm in the middle of watching season 2. It's a whole different show, man. Mm-hmm. This stuff isn't even registering in season 2. Season 2 went for like Winter Soldier. They were going for different like vibes, obviously, overall. But as far as choreography, it was not this. And I'm not saying that it's bad, and you're not saying that it's bad either. No. But it comes off as goofy because of how hard they're trying, and also how the camera is moving as well. And we also have to remember that in TV rules, Jed and Marissa, and then Jeff Bell and Jeff Loeb are the long-term creatives on the show. But remember, in TV, every episode's a different director. So, you know, like...
So they could overheat!
I can roll down a window!
I love it. I love how we're seeing how completely inexperienced this team is and how woefully unprepared they were. Fucking like Simmons, I'll roll down a window. They're being shot at. I'm gonna roll down a window. And then you saw that shot earlier on in the episode. Actually a few seconds ago. Camilla looked at Coulson's team and she's like, "What the fuck?" Like half of them needed like protection.
Get off the ramp. We're in the line of fire.
Even that right there. Mm-hmm. What are you doing? Just standing there. Get out of the way.
Yeah. Which
again, that's the point, people, is that these people don't know what the hell they signed up for. Mm-hmm. Also, shout out to Bear McCreary. I love that bit of the music with the little, I guess, bit of jungle vibe to it. In the background.
Hydra, World War II, Captain America. It's full of lethal amounts of gamma radiation.
I guess you do see here, there was... I understand why people would get the impression that, like, they were desperate to remind people that this show was in the MCU because of how many references there were. I mean, episode 1, the main bad thing going on involved Extremis. Right now, Fitz just mentioned World War II, Captain America, Hydra. Coulson just mentioned that this weapon has a Hydra, has a Tesseract fuel cell. Like, and you got to remember, I feel like people were like, this very clearly wasn't Jedmo. Mm-hmm. This was very clearly ABC. Like, remind the people at home, by the way, that this belongs in the MCU. Keep reminding them because we want people to watch you. Remember, at this point, the first 10 to 15 episodes, the executives had a lot of control and they were giving a lot of notes. And I think it was around episode 10, 11, 12, 13 where one of the producers was like, "Hey, you guys need to look. The ratings are dropping off a cliff. There's a serious chance we might not get renewed. Can you please just let us make the show we want to make?" And they did, and then it got better. What do you know? What happens when you can, ease off a little bit? But I strongly believe that all of these references were like, it came from Disney, Marvel, ABC.
It's our second.
That was your first? That's sweet.
I love that.
I'm good at stuff too.
As the doors close. I'm sorry, that stuff kills me. That's really part of the charm that kind of drew me when I was first watching this show. It's like, you know what? I can't say that this is the best thing I ever watched when I was first watching it 10, I guess years ago. But because of moments like that, it was enough to keep me interested. I was entertained, and I think that's how it starts. Also, back on that scene, you gotta wonder, looking back on it, was Ward legitimately pissed, or was he just doing what he needed to do to move along some kind of camaraderie? Because that's his whole deception, right? Like, he needs to get close to these people, and he knows what he's there to do. I do feel, though, the whole thing isn't a con. I mean, a deception. Like, there are parts of Ward's humanity that are here, and he does have a bond with them, but it's really funny, and you're gonna see me mention it a couple of times in the next few episodes. When you look back at Ward and his actions and his, feelings, what a psychotic person he is. Like, like the things that he attempts to rationalize are like, you're full of shit, man. So, like, that's one of the things about, like, I don't think necessarily he's lying. Like, he's revealing to us as the audience, with the context that we know he is Hydra, why he would be Hydra in the first place. Because of how much of a psychopath he is. Like, I think the real Ward was kind of like, the real version of Ward came in season 3 when he was just killing for fun. That was after all this fell apart, obviously.
One person doesn't have the solution, but 100 people with 1% of the solution, that'll get it done.
I was trained to be the whole solution.
He will use what Sky said later on in this episode to kind of bring the whole team together. But what I wanted to say about it is that I've always enjoyed the writing on the show, but there have been some things that have really stayed with me. I know, to me, one of the ones that sticks out to me, I don't know if you can even think of it, David, but when we get to season 5, there's something that Gemma says to Yo-Yo about, the steps you take don't need to be big. They just have to take you in the right direction. And that's the moment that Deke realizes, oh shit, she's my grandma, because she said that exact same thing to me in the future. And that's just always something that's kind of stayed with me. It's like, that's a really nice line. So, there's that. I don't know if you saw it there, but in Coulson's office, he literally has like a replica of the plane he's currently inside of. It's a really nice touch. And you know what's interesting also, David? I've noticed we don't see this set outside of season 1. I mean, Coulson's office on the bus, we never see again after the last episode of this season. Only because, Coulson got a better office in the base that they're in next season. But when we do see the bus in season 2, not one shot of it is from the set of Coulson's office. Now, this is just others. I know I'm bringing up like production design and everything. I don't know. We're talking about a show that reuses the same sets again and again, but I like this set. I like his office. Overall, here's an interesting question for you. Oh, by the way, I love this right here. Again, like for as much as there are weaknesses of some of their team, the strengths of their team also come out here. Like they already know they're being played. And they're like, if only they had caught on a little bit sooner, but they just barely missed it.
For sure.
But I was going to say, comparing this bus to the one that we get after it blows up, Zephyr 1, which set do you prefer more?
For all the seasons.
No, I mean like the two main airplanes that we have on the show. So for those who are not aware, the bus, this set that we have here, exists for the first 2 seasons until it gets blown up in season 2. Then from season 3 all the way to the end of the show, we have Zephyr 1, which is a bigger plane that can also go into space and I guess travel in time later on in the show. But that's the exterior. I mean the interior. Some things are the same. Like, I don't know if you noticed, but like I did. Fitzsimmons' laboratory right here in season 1 is the exact same set. We won't see it until season 7 when it's refurbished on the new airplane. But the new airplane doesn't have all this fancy like cushiony couches. It doesn't have the dry bar, which I don't know, just aesthetically, I'm just curious, what do you even care? I'm just asking, like, what do you have a preferred, do you like the bus better or Zephyr 1?
I'm trying to remember the Zephyr 1 a bit, but I think...
Oh, I see.
If I do remember it right, I probably prefer the bus. Just because I'm pretty sure the bus is more homey.
As it's the point, right?
Yeah.
That's the main set. Because when we get to the later seasons, it's not as much of a home, right? The home is the base that they're at. Like the plane is used almost exclusively for missions, whereas here in the bus, it's also their house.
You've heard of the cavalry?
Yeah, well, everyone at the academy
That's
talks
our
about
first
story.
reference, right? Of the cavalry.
She's the cavalry.
Yes. She's the cavalry. Yeah. That's the first time it's ever been mentioned. Yeah. Actually, you know what?
I'm pretty sure.
No. The first one was actually earlier in this episode. Right before when May and Ward were outside, I guess, that temple. When Ward says to her, I never thought I'd be working with the cavalry. And she's like, don't ever call me that. So that was in this episode. We just missed it.
Cargo door. So unless you can sustain.
What the hell was that?
Her wrist.
Love it. I guess the answer to my question is I get what you're saying about the bus more like a home. I do like what I do prefer about Zephyr 1 is the command center they have, which is connected to the cockpit of the plane, which made it feel, I don't know. I just like that better. It was bigger. That way everybody can be in the same spot. Also, really I wonder what the mood was like in the writer's room when they were gonna like do some major tearing that shit up type of sequences to their brand new set on the second episode of this show. It's like, oh my god, they're gonna hate us. So I wonder, like, in the end of this episode, you know, how they have Nick Fury come in and like chew Coulson out. I wonder if they got that from some of their higher ups at ABC. It's like, we just built this and you want to tear it down on your second episode? Also really interesting, just a weird thing I just noticed. This weapon that is the center of this episode, in one of the most comical moments, again, the show has a relationship of like doing some things that are like, whoa, way over the top. but then it's like played for a joke, but it actually is funny, unlike a lot of the MCU. But that weapon is what Coulson uses to kill John Garrett after he gets out of the box, and then like he becomes the new Deathlock. And then he was saying like, you know what they say, like, I don't know, whatever. And then Coulson uses that weapon right there to zap him, and it just like explodes. I don't know if you remember that moment, or if you remember that weapon is what was used. So
I remember he just gets obliterated, but I don't remember the weapon.
yeah, with this weapon, with this exact weapon. And also, I should have mentioned earlier in this episode, Ward used like a staff weapon. Like he put it on the ground, something came up, and then it just like zapped people.
Yeah.
Mac used that in the second to last episode. He was with Sousa on the Zephyr as they opened the hatch for the Chronocoms to come. He used that, and it was the same pose, by the way. And it was obviously a reference to this episode. And they stopped the Chronocoms, and that was when they were tying them up to become a bomb to break out of that ship. So, just some things that I'm remembering. I'm like, how the first episodes connect to the last ones. Obviously, in the last episode, the last shot was Lola flying off into the sky, which is how they ended this whole show in the last episode. So I just love the mirroring. I love mirroring in any show. Yeah. So when you're able to like do that, I love you, basically.
The music that was playing just now, after the whole thing was settled, what was it? Some kind of flute and everything, but it's like the main theme coming in, and then it's just kind of calming down and everything.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Bear McCreary is great.
Yeah,
like you said last time. Yeah. In general, he is amazing. You know, and I think it's criminal. Like it's also criminal that this show can't get a physical release outside of its second season, which is one of the ways, by the way, that Marvel completely just forgot about this show, that it didn't make it available to actually purchase. But in addition to outside season 2, you cannot listen to any of the music that Bear McCreary made for this show past season 2 unless you go on YouTube and you find like edited versions that other fans like made, because there is no option to stream this music anywhere or to buy this music anywhere, which is criminal because there's a lot of great music by Bear McCreary from this show.
What happened with you and Reyes? You guys totally did it back in the day, right?
That's classified.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is we should also say it's like Sky again. This is why I always just didn't understand the hatred that she got, because like she is showing in every episode, especially like, you know, Sky is the main character of the show besides Coulson, so a lot of the show is about her. But especially these first 5 episodes or 4 build who she is as a character. She's proving her worth. Any chance she can get. I mean, she's kind of like is an essential player in making this team actually be a team.
They're happy.
It's so funny. We call them kids, and then here they are with beer. But they do look like teenagers, right? Like this is like they're so young. Like I think they were in their mid-20s. I mean the real life Ian DeCastiger and Elizabeth Henstridge, I think were in their like mid-20s when they were cast. As was, I believe, also Chloe Bennett.
Popularity, not the norm.
Speaking of not the norm,
there's a bit. Oh my God! Did you catch what Gemma just said?
No.
Right there, no. When she was like talking to Fitz about this mission being like, it was just a strange irregularity, not the norm. But also the way that she delivered it was like, I hope it's not the norm. She has no idea what she's in store for these next 7 seasons. Which is like basically the show communicating to like, yeah, this is what the normal is going to be like on the show. I love this music right here too also. Yeah, Fitz and Ward slap each other on the back so many times. So I don't know. How it first started, I think maybe it was Fitz, but I guess, and when they each do it, the one that gets slapped isn't appreciated. I think that's one of their things that they were trying to establish between them, because especially with this part of the show, Fitz and Ward are kind of like big brother, little brother. I think that's what they were going for anyway. How did you react when you first saw what she was texting here? It's like, really?
Yeah.
After, like, really?
Really?
Yeah.
Really, Colson? Got a bar. Really nice one.
I swear to God, this is probably an ABC executive. If not, Kevin Feige was like...
Thanks for asking.
Talking to me about authority.
I think I actually missed this the first time.
The whole scene?
Yeah, this whole scene.
What?
Yeah,
Oh, man.
Because I knew, like, after the shield thing, it's all done. Like, there's
Oh, I see.
And so I was just like, okay. And then it was on my rewatch that I was like, what the fuck? He came out of the second episode?
No way, dude.
Yeah.
You gotta stay and watch. You can't stop watching until the hours. Now, well, I'm curious. Like, when you watched it, and this might be something we didn't get a chance to actually clarify. Remind me again. You were one of these, like me, that started watching from the very beginning, right?
Yeah, I saw the first episode.
Oh, okay. So, but how did you watch it? Like, as it was airing live, or did you DVR it, or did you catch it online?
I'm pretty sure I watched it on like Hulu the next day.
Okay. And this is a previous to what it's gonna look like in the next few seasons. Oh my God, there was an era of my life where I was so scared to death. Kyle and Peter know this very well, and they low-key hate me for it because of it. But there was an era where I was so scared about the show like going away. I was so unbelievably obsessed with like the fucking like measurement of ratings for this show. I could have gotten a PhD in that field, honestly, with how much I knew of them, and trying to like weigh the factors of like whether or not it had a good chance for renewal and everything. Because as it has not been mentioned, this show was on the bubble, as Clark Gregg says himself, every single year. It is amazing, and it will always be a miracle that this show went all the way to 7 seasons, when every single year they were on what is called the bubble on TV terms. That means that when you're on the bubble, you basically shoot your entire story, your whole episode order, and you have no idea if you're going to be picked up for more or if you'll ever see any of these people again. And that galvanized the team to really put out the best they possibly could every single year. And oh my God, the worst was like when season 5 was like looking like it was going to be it, and that was the last show, and ABC could not make up their minds one way or the other what to do with it. It was the last of all of the shows, and then of course they renewed it for 2 more seasons. But what was I saying? I forgot at this point what I was saying. Ultimately, it went from ratings to... Oh, yeah. Okay. My point was, if you were... did you normally watch the show online on Hulu? Did you ever watch it live? If I remember correctly, not to answer your own question for you, but I just wanted to also give it other context. Am I to understand the only time you ever watched it live was the series finale?
Probably. More than likely, yeah.
Wow. Because I remember that when we were doing the recaps for the last 13 episodes, you made a big deal of the fact that since this is the last one, you would watch it live, which is not what you usually would do. And when I say live, it's on broadcast TV on ABC Television Network when they would drop new episodes.
When I still had
cable. Say it again?
When I still had cable.
Yeah. Well, that was, again, this was in the days when most people still had cable, right? But like, yeah, that's kind of funny. You were part of the problem, my friend. You should have watched it live. And then, well, whatever. Channing Dungey, the former CEO of ABC, would always mention this, as would I, that this show did gangbusters in delayed viewing. The DVR online viewing. It like, I feel like in the average was that an overnight premiere of a new episode would be like 1 point something million viewers. But then when the delayed numbers kicked in, it was actually well over 3 million viewers. So that's how much of a difference it made for the show. Because like, most of the people that watched this show watched it days after.
Yeah, that actually happened a lot with the CW shows, like the DC shows. I think most of them were like top rated, torrented shows.
I wonder why.
For sure. But yeah, I mean, that happens a lot with a lot of good shows. So,
anywho, there's that on that. Just something curious, and that just popped up into my head about the viewing of the show. So, getting back to, we kind of lost it because Nick Fury kind of like threw everything off. But I think it's just funny how you just didn't know that scene even existed.
yeah.
When I feel like, and this irked me even back then, but I feel like, considering this is the second ever episode of the show, I do remember, I wasn't on Twitter, I think it was more so Facebook. I don't know what main social media I was using, but I do remember that, and of course this is obvious, what most of the trades were talking about out of episode 2, Nick Fury cameo, Nick Fury cameo, Nick Fury cameo.
And dude, I gotta be honest, his dialogue really reminded me of the Marvels. like I was just kind of like, it just literally took me back to the Marvels. I'm like, what the fuck? Why is he acting
Which was fun.
No, he was. No, you mentioned this a lot.
Yeah.
Like, he was very funny in the Marvels, but that's not Nick Fury.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Seeing this, I'm like, oh, okay. I feel like Nick Fury would have been acted differently.
Yeah.
Like, compared.
They were definitely, yeah. The dialogue was very much punched up in a particular direction, obviously. But I think that's actually a pretty good observation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does remind me of the Marvels, Nick Fury, which is, I think it's also just pretty funny how that movie, it's not that good, but I thought it was pretty entertaining.
Yeah.
Entertaining and fun, So there's that. Again, I'm not calling it good. We're just saying that it was fun. That's they do not mean the same thing. But before we got thrown off with Nick Fury, we're talking about what it was like for the first time watching this episode, getting to the very end after, seeing how much Skye has already, how much of an impact she already has had on the team, and how much already after 2 episodes, it's beginning to feel like a family unit, right? Like the beginning of a new family. And then the end of the episode, she's on her phone, and then she gets a text from her Rising Tide contact asking, "Are you in?" She hesitates, and then she's like, "Yes." And I'm like, damn it, Skye. We have to now go through this. And I feel like I will also, man, I'm being really charitable today. Giving, some like, defending some of the haters of the first few episodes, which I never really do, but just to also give context here, as a person that watched this in real time when it first happened 10 years ago, apparently. When I first saw it, I was annoyed for a couple of reasons. Yeah, I was annoyed because, like, okay, I know where this is going. Do we have to go through this?
No, yeah.
But I was more annoyed. I think this is what made it effective at the storytelling. I was more annoyed at Skye as a character doing this because, like, come on, why would you do that? Look how much you guys already mean to each other. You don't even know it yet. But I also do get the reasons for what that is. Thankfully, in one of the few cases where the S.H.I.E.L.D. team can say the pacing worked in their favor, they didn't drag it out. This thing that they teased at the end of this episode actually gets resolved in episode 5.
Nice.
Which Thank God.
Yeah.
Because having the whole that, but it's also interesting though because it does plant different thematic seeds in your head. Because right now in episode 2, it's like, oh shit, Sky's kind of a double agent. Like she's like doing things behind everybody else's back. Join the club, girl. Like at the same time, you got Ward and May on 2 different agendas going on. They're doing probably even worse, I guess, treachery than Sky. I wouldn't say what Sky did was treachery. I would, or May. I think they both had legitimate reasons for why they did what they did, which we'll get to in episode 5, and then I believe episode 16, 17 for both of them. Ward, though, we know that's a different situation. That was pretty scummy.
I was gonna say, like, all 3 of them are basically like betraying the team at some point. May, Ward, and Sky. But it's kind of interesting how they all deal with it in a way, because Sky, May, she's completely cut off. Sky, she's completely in with the team, but Ward is like right in the middle. Like he always saying like he wants to go solo and all that. I'm better off solo and everything and all that. But he's constantly like in the front lines with them, like putting himself in front of everyone. And so I find that kind of interesting, especially like that line of dialogue really like stood out to me when they made it back into the bus, and Sky is just standing there in the middle, and he's just like, get out of the line of fire. Like he pulls her out and everything. I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Like they're really showing him. They're really trying to show like how much he knows of the field and everything, versus like we know who May is, especially like in the later seasons and all that. She should know just as much, if not even more, than him about certain field tactics, I guess you could say. But she doesn't do that. She doesn't say any kind of dialogue like that. She just does her own thing. And so I find it kind of interesting how they all kind of just deal with like how they're trying not to stand out because they know they're all betraying the team.
Yeah.
I think I might be overthinking it, but I don't know.
No, I don't think you are. There's a lot of layers to this, but I think people missed for sure. I also bringing in the full context of the show's history. It kind of became a running gag, the number of times that Sky would go on to betray the team for different reasons as the show went on. Even so much when, it touched a nerve in season 5 where they lock up Fitz because he kind of goes crazy a little bit with like trying, basically almost paralyzing Daisy. But like, and Daisy goes in there like, pissed off, obviously, and accusing him of like betraying the team. And then Fitz is like, do you want me to recount all the times that you did? And she was like, she fucking quaked him. She was pissed. But it was actually true because it's kind of a running thing that's happened several times. Maybe betray isn't the right way of putting it, but maybe betray isn't the right way of putting it, but there are moments where she kind of walks away from the team for various reasons, but it kind of becomes her thing. So that's just pretty interesting stuff. So overall, how did you enjoy this episode?
It was good. I mean, the first thing that pops to mind is standard stuff. I mean, Coulson knows storytelling, I guess you could say. Like he always points that out too, especially like when it comes to heroes and all that. He knows that this is the part of the story where they all come together. And I like that line of dialogue though. It's like they're gonna come together. It's like, how do you know? It's like they have a common enemy and all that. It wasn't exactly like that, but that's basically how it went down. So, but I mean, you see this in every other show, and it's always good. And I mean, it all made sense for each character to do what they were doing. It made sense with each of their parts. What they were doing and all that. Again, I like that line dialogue. He knows combat, so he was there in the front lines with everything and all that. They knew how to. Fitz and Simmons they're always the plan people, basically. If shit goes bad, they're the ones that like come up with the plan B. And then there's Sky who just backs them up. Yeah. For right now, she backs him up. Later on,
Oh yeah, she'll take center stage for sure. There are also some other stuff that was teased here. Might not be the right terminology, but some other stuff we didn't mention toward the end of the episode. We get the the first introduction to the concept of an SO, a supervising officer, and how, since it's obvious that Sky is going to be much more than a consultant, she'll need some kind of training, and so Ward takes it upon himself, by May's suggestion, to be her SO. But then May would end up being her SO in the next season. Which I thought was pretty interesting. And then they also set up a little bit, May getting a little bit irritated at the end. Was it? No, it wasn't. No, it was in the middle of the episode when they leave Peru, and Coulson's like trying to talk to her, and she's like, "Get the fuck out." In that, like, she again at this point, she's not supposed to be in any kind of combat. Like, she's technically only here to drive the bus. At least that's what we're being told, and yet she's constantly having to come in and save everybody's ass. So you can see her being annoyed, and then at some point in the next few episodes, she'll make it clear to Coulson, you know what? Fuck it, I'm signing up for duty because, like, what the fuck else are you gonna? Who else is gonna help out with this? So there is that as well. Other than that, we should talk about the performances again. For however much there is to complain about the show, I always felt bad more than anybody else was the cast, because I do think that they were crushing it very early on. And again, they're crushing it for who these characters are supposed to be right now, and then of course they'll crush it in a very different way when these characters grow into new people. But I just think the casting on this show always was incredible. And as far as the leads are concerned, like, I don't even know where you find people like Chloe Bennett, Ian DeCasticker, Elizabeth Henstridge. Like, they were all practically unknowns before this show. And wow, it kind of reminds you, it's like, wow, if this is what we're gonna belittle or diminish as like TV acting, like, I don't know, they're crushing it with these roles. And then especially what I thought was always kind of amazing about how much the show grew, especially because, again, I'm gonna go out and say I'm praising their performances for what they need to be right here, but like, especially when we get to next season and the following seasons, the things that they're able to pull off, Henstridge, DeCasticker, Bennett, also Greg, Ming-Na Wen. Later on, Henry Simmons, Natalia Cordova, Nick Blood, Adrian Palacki, Jeff Ward. Many, I can name every actor here basically, but like, they're given emotional weight. They're given really, really like pivotal scenes to carry emotionally, and they got us. And I think, and to think, the one that would get us the most would be Fitz's character, Ian DeCasticker. Like, would consistently just like act circles around everybody. But what I always thought was kind of interesting is, like, you don't get that off of this episode. You wouldn't think, just by watching here, like, this guy right here is gonna like make you fucking cry. So again, like, the show grew in all the right ways at all the right moments. But it, like you said early on, that it's really interesting to catch them in these early days. It's like, wow, look how young you were. Wow, look how young we were. And I know, just going off from a personal standpoint, in a lot of ways, this show was kind of like helping me go through. Like, look, I've said for I don't know how many years that we've been doing this show, but I have always said that, particularly with TV shows, and because of how long I've lived with them, the main characters of my favorite shows I think of as extension of my family, right? Like what we talked about recently with the passing of Akira Toriyama and how much his characters mean to me from the Dragon Ball universe. You have to understand the mindset that I was in 2013. For me, the show that I had watched religiously, basically, whenever there was a new episode, I would be there to watch a new episode since 2008. From 2008 to 2013 was not only over, but the way that it was ended was like gut-wrenching, horrid, like just abrupt. And I'm talking about the Clone Wars. It was like it was here and then it was gone, and it was really difficult to process that, especially because Star Wars wasn't dead. Star Wars got a brand new beginning. There were like all these movies and projects that were being made, but why did what I loved had to go away? Why couldn't it have just stayed? And obviously that's a whole different conversation, but like the point is, because that was no longer there, I was like, well, what now? Like what new thing is going to come? Would there be a new thing to come in? And I also want to stress part of why this show made the impact on me that it did was that this is basically a show about a found family, right? About a family of they don't know it yet. They're friends right now, but they're gonna be a family, and they act like if even May in this episode called, we already have 2 kids. You're gonna add a third one. It's like it's very familial, and it was. I loved the vibes of the show early on, and it was just fun to watch, and I didn't expect much from this. But I just liked the personalities. I liked the quirks. I just liked watching a show that explored, a version of our Earth, but in the cinematic universe. At that same time, I was beginning to delve into the movies and getting really, really excited for like what was to come next. So it's one of those things where it's like a right place at the right time, but it's watching this again, I'm beginning to fully appreciate a lot more than I probably was ever able to emotionally 10 years ago. The reasons for why I love the show. And even I recently watched this episode 15 days ago, and right here it's like I'm watching it all over again. Mm-hmm. Like I am really happy that we're gonna go ahead and do this, because I'm loving my time here and I'm loving these conversations. So 2 down, 134 to go. I don't know when the hell we'll finish, but not like we're in any rush. At least I wouldn't want to be in any rush. But I also do want to plug Emma Levy's video essay. I believe last time I checked, this is about a month and a week old. When I first saw the video, because the algorithm obviously recommended it to me, it was like not even 10K views. Now it's like over 55K views. And it's climbing. So, which I dig, because that means we're going to get more videos from her on the show. I'm not sure if you finished it, but I am curious to hear what you have made so far of some of the stuff that you watched from her video. Her 3-hour-long video, which I love.
I got to the part where she finished talking about the first season, pretty much. Because she does talk about the first 2 seasons, right, in her video? Mm-hmm. Okay. I got to basically halfway through her video, and then all of a sudden something happened on my YouTube app that it went back to starting from the 2-minute mark for some reason. I'm like,
oh no,
I don't want to find where I was left off, so I kind of stopped there.
Well, you gotta put in the work at some point, otherwise you're never gonna finish it.
I know. But I listened to her breakdown of the first season, and I mean, I just mainly loved her stance on the filler episodes are important and everything. I'm sure I would have noticed it in rewatching the episodes here, but I probably would have. I never thought about how important those filler episodes were towards the end of the first season and all that. So that was an amazing catch, and I really liked their breakdown of it. So that was cool.
Because basically every episode matters. Mm-hmm. Because people want to say, you can skip the first 15. Just jump on when the Hydra reveal happens and you're good to go. And by the way, if you did that and you ended up watching the show afterward and loved it, I love you. Thank you for watching the show. I'm not going to take that away from you. But I think it's ridiculous to say that the first like 15 episodes are disposable, as if nothing of note happened. The show happened. The characters and you getting to know who they are and caring about them. Nothing that happens after the Hydra reveal. Who gives a shit if there was a betrayal if you don't care about these characters first? That's how I feel anyway. And so they had to put in the work. They had to, otherwise, again, who cares? So I think, God bless her for that. Honestly, for just like putting it out there. I'm not gonna say I agree with all the things that she says. I would say most things. I'm and even the things that I'm not necessarily feel the same way. She really explains herself very well where she's coming from. She really hates Gonzalez. In season 2, the whole real Shield thing, and there's some criticisms that, I agree with actually. And we'll get to those when we get to that season, because I still feel like season 2 is one of my favorites. But maybe if we're looking at the longevity of the series, maybe one of the storylines that didn't exactly age the best was the Real Shield storyline. Not that it sucked, but I feel like it was by design supposed to be frustrating, and it was. Well, as a viewer, very frustrating watching that whole storyline play out, especially in the way that it did. We could talk for hours, honestly. So we're gonna leave it there. Thank you all so much for watching again. We'll be back next week, hopefully, with the 3rd episode, which I believe is called The Asset. And it'll be another Sky-centered episode for all you Sky haters out there. Hopefully you'll stay tuned with our reaction and audio commentary. If you happen to enjoy our commentary, by the way, check out our channel. We got a bunch of more conversations for you guys to listen to. If you like movies, and I hope and I assume that you do if you watch this video, first and foremost, give us a like and a thumbs up anytime you want. Or if you want to leave a hate comment saying that we're terrible, awful people, please also leave that down below as well, or that we suck, or that the show sucks, fine, whatever. But we also just recently did a massive 2-parter. The first one's like 3 hours long, and the second one's 2 hours, which, by the way, if you know the history of our show, that's the usual length of our episodes anyway. So, but we just did a 2-parter on our favorite 10 movies of this brand new decade from 2020 to right now. So the first part was this past week, which I should also just clarify that when I'm saying this might actually be well in the past. So let's just say by the time that this is uploaded, both parts of that big episode were already made available on the Red Spotlight Entertainment podcast, which is been around for a while. And we've been friends for as long as this podcast has been a thing. And so, yeah. Also, one thing I didn't mention, David, I'm sure people who saw the first one did notice. It's funny how we didn't even need to like go out and acquire any kind of shield decoration or merch to do this show, because we both happen to have a shield poster behind us. You have the poster that I gave you from season 6. Which I still like that poster. I like that. It feels like it actually looks like an album cover. Honestly, just like of all the main characters from season 6. And then I have, and then my favorite poster was the one from season 7, which I got back in 2020, which is like 4 years ago. I cannot believe that shit. So, just one thing I wanted to bring to people's attention in case that wasn't already obvious enough. And of course, I like to make the sets look nice. Speaking of sets and everything. So without any further ado, thank you so much for watching us, and we will see you guys next time. Stay under our spotlight. Bye-bye.
Bye.